The Cold War was a tense mental battle between the United States of America and the Soviet Union. During this time, bombs were being mass-produced all over the globe, causing everyone to be on the edge of their seats in hysteria in the streets.
I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're one on the phone. Everything's going to be all right. Please.
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
I've got to get out of here. Out of here. Out of here. I've got to get out of here.
After World War II, the Soviet Union and the United States of America were the only two world powers left standing. Germany had been split in half, with democratic US in the west and communist USSR in the east. In addition to the dissection of Germany, the Marshall Plan was initiated. Created by George Marshall, it was made to help aid European countries after the war. With an accompanying aid already in place, it was also decided to make a United Nations to help world peace. The timeline of the Cold War can best be characterized as from the end of World War II to the collapse of the Soviet Union. A new policy, called the Truman Doctrine, focused on the containment of communism. After World War II, the democratic countries formed NATO, and the communist countries formed the Warsaw Pact in response to it. This jump-started the arms race for nuclear arms. While this race continued on the ground, another race was beginning in a whole new realm, a space race. USSR was the leader of this race, sending the first satellite, Sputnik, and the first man, Yuri Gagarin, into space. However, the US soon took the lead by putting the first man, Neil Armstrong, on the moon in the Apollo 11 mission. The first woman, Sally Ride, would not go into space until later in history. During the Cold War, there were only 3 events of physical fighting. The first one occurred during the Cuban Missile Crisis. As communism was trying to take over Cuba, the US launched a mission called the Bay of Pigs to kill the communist leaders of Cuba. It ended badly for the US. They lost every single soldier. The next event was the Korean War. North Korea, communist, invaded South Korea, democratic, and pushed the spread of communism back to the 38th parallel. Then the Vietnam War occurred. Once again, Communist North attacked the Democratic South. This war, however, faced much opposition from those in the U.S. Kennedy watched over the war until he was assassinated in 1963. Nixon, the new president, began the process of Vietnamization, or withdrawing of troops, until he resigned after the Watergate scandal. This was Nixon's attempt to spy on the Democratic office. The Cold War was very much like a virus. Everyone was afraid of communism. Schools performed bomb drills, practicing duck and cover, and many built fallout shelters.
There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He ducked and cover, ducked and cover.
He did what we all must learn to do. You
and you
and you
and you, duck and cover.
Fears doubled when Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, 2 normal-looking citizens, were convicted of being Soviet spies. People like Senator Joseph McCarthy used this and accused numerous people of being communists. This is where the term McCarthyism developed. All in all, the Cold War was a terrible time. Many felt threatened and chaos ensued. The Soviet Union had economic difficulties after they raised military expenses to compete with the U.S. The U.S. faced its own problems when its veterans were faced with hostility after the Vietnam War. However, some good came out of this period. President Ronald Reagan increased the military and economic pressure on the Soviet Union. He also challenged the moral legitimacy of the Soviet Union. One way he did this was in his "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall" speech.
We welcome change and openness, for we believe that freedom and security go together, that the advance of human liberty can only strengthen the cause of world peace. There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Also, during his inaugural address, Kennedy said his famous quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country."
We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
A new sense of nationalism had risen.